All right, everyone. Today I'm hosting Kelly Ellers, founder of the Evoke agency, the Tease Media. She's a five-time Inc. 500 and 5,000 agency and a Forbes writer.
Yes, here I am.
I drew a blank there, Kelly. I was like, Inc. 5,000. I mean, it's a list, right? So
It's
you're
a
on the
list.
list.
Yeah.
So tell us about the Evoke agency. Who do you serve, and what do you help your clients with?
Yeah. So I'll give you a little bit of an origin story, if you will, because I think it's interesting from a timing perspective. So the Evoke agency, I believe, was probably one of the first, if not the first, social media consultancies or agencies, if you will, back in the day. And I say that because I started the business 15 years ago. And that's a long time ago from a social perspective. It was on the precipice of when social media started becoming a thing for brands. So you no longer had to have a .edu email address to be on the Facebook. Twitter was new. We were blogging for the first time. And so I noticed a change kind of in the marketplace, and it was a mix of timing and instinct, I think, that I went out on my own to help businesses sort of uncover what this new world of communication was. So it's been a wild journey. Obviously, social is a big part of our lives, and it's evolved incredibly over the last 15 years and does daily from an algorithm perspective. But we are so blessed to work with some of the biggest and best brands in the country and maybe even the world. The big houses of Procter and Gamble, Kraft Heinz, Marriott, Henkel, L'Oreal, Wella, really focusing in kind of the consumer packaged goods space as well as the lifestyle, luxury, and beauty categories. So we help brands really uncover what that reason to be or reason to believe or reason to follow is from a social perspective, develop out their strategy, and then turnkey execute it for them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very impressive. I'm curious. So as you were scaling, what was the one growth lever that's made the biggest difference for you?
Good question. Because I subscribe to the theory of, have you ever heard the theory of predictable success from like a growth model? It's just, it really sums up how we grew. So, in layman's terms, it's kind of a curve, right? An upside down, like a bell curve. And the bottom starts that you're in fun. Like you have a great idea, like this is awesome. We're coming to the marketplace. We're having so much fun. Like clients love us. We love what we're doing. And then as you progress, you get into a category called whitewater. And that is like, whoa, we're bringing on clients, we're bringing on people. We don't have systems, we don't have processes in place. And it's rocky and bumpy. And a lot of businesses fail in whitewater, go back down to fun, or they peace out, right? But if you can get yourself through whitewater, at the top of the bell curve is something called predictable success. And that is when scale happens. So the levers that we pulled when we were in whitewater were really standard operating procedures and making sure that we had processes in place at every single level of the organization. And I'm not a process gal. I'm a like, woo, like, let's go get some business. Like, let's knock down some doors. I'm going to hand it off to my team to operationalize. And so that was probably hardest for me, but I'm blessed to have someone by my side, my first employee. She's been with me for 13 years, and she is definitely an operator. And so, from everything to our finances to client travel to projects to deliverables, everything in our company has an SOP, a standard operating procedure. And so that allows us to have consistency, have shared expectations across the board, internally and externally. And then it allows us to take a client and drop them right into said scalable process and have those results on the end. So it's not that whitewater, oh my gosh, we got a new client who's going to do this. No, it's like, boop, put them in the process. Off we go because we've done this. It's repetitive and we know what we're doing. So that was a hurdle. I mean, we were in whitewater for a couple of years, and there were even times where I was like, I don't know. I don't know. Should we just call it? And my mentor once said to me, he's like, if you're not growing, you're dying. And so when I asked him that question of like, this is getting too hard, I don't know what's next. He's like, well, it's either grow or die. And so I wanted to keep growing, and we worked our way through it to predictable success.
Wow. It's so crazy to think of it as like grow or die. And
I
like, who
know,
wants to
right?
die? Who wants
No,
to
I
die?
was like, that's so unmotivating and depressing, right? Like I pushed through this time and this service in this category where there were no budgets for social media. I mean, when I started out, I was waiting by my mailbox for my $500 check for my first client. Like it was dire, right? And because there was no line item. It was like social's gonna go away. I think my niece can do this, right? Like I don't get this. But again, now it's been interesting to see over the last even 5 years, I would say, that it's become such a big piece of the marketing pie in the marketing budget.
I can totally see that. It's like when something new comes out
Yeah.
and everyone's like, it's a fad, it's a trend.
I know, don't you see that? I think the next big wave is AI from like I like it like I look back and say, okay, what are the major communication tools that have changed us, right? And so I was around before the internet was around. My favorite comedian says I'm from the 1900s, and I too am from the 1900s. But I remember my senior year in high school, we had a class on how to search the World Wide Web. And it was like this whole new world opened up. And so I think the internet was one of those stakes in the ground. I think social media was one of those stakes in the ground. And I think the next one is AI. And so anyone out there saying, yeah, no, I don't like this. To me, it goes back to the haters on social that were like, I'm not going to be on Facebook, but now they're scrolling it all the time.
Yeah. And they're companies that they did not evolve with might not be
Totally.
where they could be today.
For sure. Yeah. I think you can't resist it. Just like, back in the day, you can't and eventually couldn't and can't now resist social.
For sure, for sure. I'm curious, what's the vision now? What does the Evoke agency look like at its next level?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we want to continue and grow. I think from an agency perspective, and luckily during COVID, we were diversified. So we did not have all of our proverbial eggs in one basket from an industry perspective because we were working in the salon pro space. We were working this in the salon professional space a lot. And obviously during COVID, that whole market stopped, right? So if we wouldn't have been diversified, that would have been a problem. So we continue to do that. I think that the evolution of social has been super interesting. It used to be that we need, five videographers, five professional photographers to take content and design it beautifully, perfectly. That shift has changed. Now our photographers and videographers are shooting on their iPhone because it needs to be more native content to the platform. So all of those things are definitely evolving and changing. I see fast growth at the end of 25 and 26 for us, which is also interesting from an economy perspective, a tariff perspective, but we're seeing brands kind of lean into those marketing budgets even more. And then, is it an AI consultancy? I think the answer is yes. In saying, here's how we can streamline and operationalize and create some standard operating procedures from an AI perspective with your company, with your brands, and kind of automate that for teams. Another thought around that is kind of a double click into AI, how can we become more sophisticated where a client comes to us and they're like, you know what, we don't have this budget, but we still want to work with you. How can we create an AI offering that we've trained with our intellectual property for market specific that our clients can plug into on a subscription based program, a one time process to help them with content, campaign creative, just really putting all of our institutional knowledge from a marketing perspective into that trained AI.
That's yeah, I love where your head is at in terms of you marketing is just not enough anymore. You have to
No. Yeah.
help your clients with additional things, that one of those being AI. So I'm curious, Kelly, is it more of an additional product or service offering, or is it all encompassing, from kind of your core offer? How do you think about those two pieces?
I think of it as a new product offering because it isn't something that, we would have had months ago or years ago. So it's kind of an evolution of you want to work with us. We've got 15 years. Let's take the salon professional industry. Okay. I have a color manufacturer that's trying to sell color to a salon professional, a hairstylist, a colorist, a barber, whatever it might be. And they say, hey, we're launching this in the US. We just don't have huge budgets, but we want so desperately to have your insight on the US market, on the market itself. How do we talk to hairdressers in the United States about this product? The competitive analysis around it. Who are we going up against in the marketplace? And what's our reason to be? What is our, niche that we can carve out in this launch in the US? But we don't have a lot of money. I mean, we always hear that from an agency perspective. I just don't have any money. And so that would be something where we take our collective team of 45 people and we have put in all of our institutional knowledge about all of those things, competitors, US market, launching in the US, how you speak stylist, putting it into that particular AI piece of software, and that is something that they can leverage. So it's getting our brain, but not paying for hundreds of hours of our time, but still our intellectual property.
Got it.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's a bolt on too. And back to your question on what where else do we see? Something that we've been doing in 2025 is offering fractional CMO services. So again,
Interesting.
yeah, again a tap into we work with a medical practice that has 6 locations throughout the United States, and we work with the 2 founders, and they just haven't had a lot of success in hiring that person internally to say, we're going to put all this investment, all this training into these people, and we're just not jiving. Can we outsource this to someone who does have expertise in those areas? And we act as their fractional CMO. So we report in just to the CEOs or the owners of the company as we would as a CMO, and we act on behalf of the brand. So, hey, we're not seeing the lead generation here. We're not seeing the conversion from a sales perspective. We work with their internal teams to get all that data and say, we need to switch what we're doing here as a CMO. We're being directive to them versus them saying, this is what we want to do because we flip this script and we're invested in their business as that fractional CMO.
Got it. That's really interesting. And was that more of a strategic move to start moving upstream, or was that more of we got our clients' results, so this is like the next logical step?
Yeah, I think it's to move them upstream. I think it was something that here's the thing. What's different about the Evoke agency is that we've been lucky and worked hard to have almost 100% referral based clientele. So, what that says to us, and we've had clients for 14 years, a handful of them, and I started the business 15 years ago. So, we have a philosophy that we overmanage the details, and that means that we see areas of opportunity, whether it be relationship development, financial gain, whatever it is, we see opportunities for brands that we're bringing to the table over and above our quote unquote retainer. And that's made us really special in the market. And that allows us to act as a CMO because we are actually as invested in the success of our clients because of that referral based business model that we have to prove those results. We have to grow with the brand. We have to grow with the company. And so part of us, we're like, we're acting like we're part of the internal team members anyway. Let's offer this service as an additional type of service that we can bolt on to the agency.
That makes a ton of sense. For other agency owners listening that maybe haven't hit the level of scale that you have, Kelly, how would you advise them to build a referral system that's that robust?
Oh, yeah. I've got a great one. Okay. So this is like my favorite story. So a long time ago, actually, it's not a fairy tale, but I was at a conference with Procter and Gamble, and they brought in the head of Disney, and I forget, maybe it was operations. I forget the actual title. And he did a speech on the art of over managing the details. And so I mentioned that, but what that concept is, it's directly stolen from Walt Disney, like straight up. So Walt Disney, you'll notice at the parks when you go there, little things down to the detail of your name tag. It's a white name tag. It's the same font. It's your first name, and it's the state or the country of which you grew up in, where you're from. And so you think about that. You're standing in line. You're like, I'm so irritated. My kids are running around. Like it's super hot. I'm going to be waiting here for an hour. And you get up to say, all right, it's our turn. You know, everybody's crabby. Let's get on the ride. But you look at this name tag and you go, wait a second. I'm from Iowa too. Where'd you grow up there? Right. And so it's this humanizing of relationships and understanding that we are all human, but it's this connectivity, right, to that. And so we've taken that same philosophy of over managing the details with our relationships in the fact that we go so deep as to get to know our clients, certainly. But an example is we had a client in California and brought us into this big project, and super awesome guy. He's now a really great friend of ours. So is his wife, and we know his son. But he would bring us over to his house because he loved to cook. You guys are in town, come on over. And we got to know that him and his son really enjoyed always watching Star Wars, talking about it, building Star Wars Legos. It was just like their jam. And so we know when his son's birthday is. And every birthday, the night before, lands something in their mailbox related to Star Wars that they can enjoy together, right? Pretty clutch. Like all of those little tiny humanizing moments add up. I also have another fun thing, if you will, and it's called Project Orchid. So I personally love flowers. It's like I have a huge flower garden in my back of my house. It's just something that's been like in my soul. And so every time we get a referral or somebody says, "Hey, you should really call this person," or "Hey, you got to call Kelly over at Evoke or the Tease Media," the next day arrives a giant orchid on their desk as a thank you every single time. In fact, I just sent 4 of them out today. We just submitted for an RFP. We did the presentation yesterday and the orchids were delivered today. We don't know if we'll get the business. We don't know if we'll ever hear from them again. However, they're going to see that note from me and an orchid delivered on their desk. And the thing with that over sending chocolates or some candy or food is that orchid will stay there for a couple months. And so every time they look at that orchid, they'll think, "God, that was pretty slick," right? Or I'm looking at this orchid and now Kelly has won the business with her team. And I'm just remembering how thoughtful that was because it was totally unnecessary. But again, it was that connection and that human touch that makes you just kind of double click on somebody. And I actually did have a client tell me that we were pitching against other agencies. And she said, "You know what set you apart is the orchid that landed on our desks." 3 of them landed in their office in New York, and they're like, "What is happening?" And she was like, "We just knew that you were our kind of people," and it sealed the deal. So, over managing the detail, paying attention to those details that connect to you from a human perspective. It's easy. You just gotta take a couple extra steps. It works.
Powerful. Powerful. It clearly works in a space where agencies are popping up every day
Oh,
and, you know, client churn is through the roof
yep.
and, the barriers to entry is like so low for you to be able to continue serving at such a high level for so long and to maintain your clients and have a referral business. It's clearly working. Something's working there.
Yeah,
Um,
it's you mentioned agencies popping up all over the place, and even social media agencies, like, quote, unquote, like, I have a little bit of a bone to pick. I mean, with some that pop up because it's like, "Well, wait, yesterday you were a realtor, but, like, now you're a social media expert?" Like, nah. So, I think that it's so crowded, it's so overhyped, but with us, we go back to the data, the results, the algorithms, which, some agencies that are popping up all over the place might not have that level of savvy.
yeah, I can absolutely see that. Kelly, it seems like you've mastered many areas of business. I'm curious what areas of life you master on this journey.
Oh my gosh. Wow, that's a good one. It was interesting because I started the business when I was 5 months pregnant with my first son in the heart of the recession. So I don't know if I was just that crazy intuition that I bopped out and did it, but it was real hard. And then through that, a couple years later, had my second son and then hired my first employee. So it was just me for a couple of years. And I always say, like, my sons were with me because they were physically with me through the journey that I was pushing through. So, I think that early on, I mastered and it was hard, the thought of being away, but still building something because I traveled a lot. I did a lot of keynote speaking because, again, social was new. So it's like, "Can you come speak at this conference? Can you come do these things?" Which I used to be, like, deathly afraid of public speaking, and that would be one thing in life that I've mastered, I guess, outside of business. But it was the thought of leaving my young children at home with my very capable husband, but that mom guilt is real. But I pushed through it knowing that what I'm building is something that they can look back on and know that I did this, that I do have a very successful 2 very successful companies. And, it was hard at the time, but I'm glad I did it when they were young and didn't know that I was gone.
Powerful.
Yeah.
2 very powerful life lessons. And you also mentioned 2 successful companies, and I know we've kind of been really focused on, you know, your agency, but you're
Yeah.
also running another company or
Yeah.
another business in the background, right? The Tease
Yeah.
Media?
Yeah. So the story with that is I've had a love for the salon professional space my whole life because my mom was a stylist and salon owner for 40 years. So kind of grew up in the back of her salon and always wanted to be in the industry from a marketing perspective. And pushing and shoving our way into that, we got there. But along the way, we noticed that The traditional trade media in the salon professional space hadn't evolved in years. It was just regurgitated press releases, no journalistic integrity, no propping up the salon pro. In fact, maybe not even doing that at all. Maybe bringing them down in a way. And so we created the Tease media to take all the market share, number one, to like stomp out the competitors in the space, but most importantly, to elevate the salon professional. I think that there's a lot of thoughts around the trades, which barbering and salon professionals are. We want everyone to know that from your grandfather to your guidance counselor, that the salon industry, the professional beauty industry, is an incredibly viable industry. You can do so many things. I was just talking with the Ulta team yesterday, and a woman there that she's been with Ulta for 8 years. She started as a hairstylist behind the chair at Ulta. She's now at head of their corporate education from a salon professional perspective. So it's yes, you can be behind the chair. Yes, you can be a salon owner. You can be a brand educator. You can work in corporate. You can do all of these different things. And there's so many paths. So with the Teas, we have high editorial prowess that we're propping up are the voices that haven't traditionally been heard in the industry, and then making sure that we're elevating the category, elevating the industry. So it's been a journey. It's been fun. That's kind of like it was fun to start another company and just be like, let's start a media company. I mean, never done that before.
In a space in the, the marketing, the social media space in general, content creation
Yeah.
is literally king right now. So
Mhm.
in a vertical like the salon space, how are you guys advising and helping your clients to capture the content that they can then use to raise their brand awareness?
Yeah. We do have a content production studio here in our offices, and where I do have professional videographers, content creators, photographers, graphic designers, illustrators, you name it. So we have the ability to create really polished professional content. And then we also, content needs to be more native to the platform. So a TikTok video doesn't need to be polished. So our creators are also using iPhones too. And everyone in our office, about 45 employees outside of just our creative team, are content creators too. So when you work with us, you essentially have that content creation team where we're creating that for you. However, there's a lot of different ways to think about content. First of all, organic and paid content. But if I think about organic, yes, you want branded content, right? Owned content. But you also want user generated content, UGC. So people are admirers of the brand. They're posting about it. We want to repost it. And then you also want employee generated content. We call that EGC because we want to see inside the office. We want to see what's happening. Think of all the crazy memes where you've got like somebody in an office chair and they're like sliding around the office and like doing crazy things. Like we want employee generated content too. So looking at those three pillars are really important with a content strategy. And it doesn't all just land with the agency. We want kind of those three pillars.
I have never heard of employee generated content. So thank you for that.
Welcome.
I'm rolling that out to our clients. Hey, we
Do
need
it.
some
And it's been
EGC.
EGC, it's been really fun. Like, we worked with Nature Made Vitamins for a really long time, and, it's super regulatory, some of these industries where these professionals, like, you wanna go back and talk to, like, their scientists and their chemists, and they're not necessarily, like, great on camera, but it's fun and funny because 'cause you're like, when would you talk to, like, the chemist that's, like, back in literally, like, the lab? We don't have access to that as the agency, the brand has access to it, and so showing those faces behind the brand helps humanize the brand, which we know works.
Back to your human element,
Yeah,
human connection. I see a
exactly.
theme.
Good theme.
I see a theme. Getting ready to wrap up here, Kelly. If you had to give one piece of advice to an upcoming agency owner, entrepreneur, what would it be?
Yes. This is easy. Okay. Because it goes with the theme. Okay, so I have this big sign framed in my office that says "Figure shit out." And my dad used to always say that. He's like an entrepreneur, like a grinder, just like, I don't know, figure shit out, right? And so we've always had that mentality here at the Evoke agency and the Tease Media that a lot of times when in the early days, the client would be like, "Can you do that?" And we're like, "Yes, we can do that." And we'd hang up the phone and go, "Holy shit, we have no idea how to do that." But the philosophy of figuring shit out is something that you should carry with you in all aspects of your life. And you think about the people you work with that are like, "Nah, not gonna figure that out." Are those the ones that are striving and rising the ranks? No. You've gotta be able to sit back, have a high level of emotional intelligence, say, "Okay, let's break this down into manageable chunks. Who do we know that we can bring in? What expertise can we pull from our past clients? And really just have that attitude of saying yes and figuring shit out. Especially if you're a new agency owner, there's so much to uncover. I mean, I remember when I started at an agency right out of college, I was like, oh, like total ego. I was like, I could run this place. Like, I should be running this place. And I was so, so, so wrong. Like, I wouldn't have had any business thinking that I knew what I was doing. And so, if you're starting out, be open to learning, be open to figuring shit out, is what I would say for my advice.
That's powerful, Kelly. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Where can people learn more about you, the Evoke
Yeah.
agency, the Tease Media, or anything that we spoke about today?
Yeah, I mean, it's the evokeagency.com. I'm on mostly on Instagram, and I also love LinkedIn. So Kelly Ellers there, both on Instagram and LinkedIn, where I'm sharing a lot of thought leadership. You mentioned that I'm a Forbes writer. A lot of that thought leadership is coming through Forbes that we are then parsing out through the agency. And then the Tease Media is at Read the Tease or thetease.com.
Awesome. Kelly, thank you so much for coming on
You're
the show
welcome.
today. It's been a pleasure to have you.